button here. 748. Governor Rick Perry, welcome Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
McGraw, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for spending a couple of minutes with us.
Absolutely.
Let's start with the controversy. KTRS, you may know, has pulled your ad. Do you understand management's reason for pulling your ad?
I understand the First Amendment very well, so it's certainly their right to decide whether or not they would run an ad or not, and I totally respect that. But more importantly, we're having a good conversation across the country, not just in Missouri, but we've been into California and Connecticut, over in Illinois as well, just talking about this red state versus blue state policies, and competition's good. I mean, being an old baseball player, you understand that that if you don't have competition, if you don't have somebody pushing you, then you're probably not going to be as strong, as focused, as disciplined as you need to be. And that's really what this is about, McGraw. I hope nobody gets confused that it's trying to beat up on a particular state or an individual. It's not. I hope we have a really good civil conversation and give businessmen and women the opportunity just to discuss what's in their best interest from the standpoint of tax policy in this case, or regulatory decisions, or legal system that you put into place, or accountable public schools, because those are the four legs of a stool, if you will, that hold up an economy. And I think my home state of Texas is a pretty good example. If you have taxes that don't strangle the small business operators, and have regulations that are predictable and stable, and legal system that doesn't allow for oversuing, and continue to fund accountable public schools, that your economy will grow and people will flourish and be better able to take care of their families. And that's really at the core of what this discussion is all about.
Certainly understandable, but your ad doesn't say that. Your ad says it's a great place to live and work down in Texas. If your ad would have said, hey, please call your legislator and tell them to override the veto, that would have been fine. But it didn't say that. It was a lot of people thought it was somewhat crass in that you just came out and said, hey, move to Texas. You understand that.
Well, what I understand is that we're getting two issues. I suppose that they are in some ways connected, because if you were to override the veto of the governor and you had a lesser tax burden, it's obviously going to be harder to recruit your businesses to come to Texas. But listen, I don't apologize to anyone for saying, listen, there are places in this country that have tax policy that's not as onerous as what you have in your state, and certainly Texas is one of those. And again, I go back to, I hope no one was offended by the tone of the message here. This is just a good, a competitive message that, I would carry anywhere, and that I can assure you, Bobby Jindal, who's over on the eastern side of Texas and Louisiana, and Susana Martinez, who is the New Mexican governor, are both at some point in time talking to businesses in Texas to come to their respective states. And I'm not offended by that. As a matter of fact, it makes me go back and work with my legislature, and whether it's to fine-tune tax policy or pass a loser pay to make our legal system even more protected from frivolous lawsuits. And that's what this is really about. I hope we all can openly and very, heck, aggressively and competitively talk about how we make our states more competitive. And if you live in a location that is, in your opinion, onerous to your ability to run your business because they overtax or overregulate or overlitigate, or you can't find the skilled workers that you need, then have the right to relocate or to expand your business in another location. That's what this is really about.
You understand
competition is good.
competition is great, but you also know that Nixon's out of this now. The Republicans have a veto-proof majority in both houses, so it's not up to Nixon now. It's up to Republicans to vote their party and to vote with you. So it's really not a fight with Nixon. It's a fight within the Republican Party.
I never said it was, and I think that's a really good point, McGraw. This has never been about Jay. Now, Jay vetoed you wouldn't be having this conversation if
Right.
He hadn't vetoed the piece of legislation. So, it's not exactly that his hands are clean here. He was involved in the process, and I get that. But this is not about me, and it's not about Jay. This is about the concepts of, are you going to be more competitive, or are you going to be less competitive, and is it okay to talk about this competitiveness between the states? I happen to think that it's a good, thoughtful, constructive conversation to have in America about blue state versus red state policies. And I know it's uncomfortable, and I would suggest to you that when governors come to Texas to recruit businesses, that it's not comfortable, but it's probably not comfortable when the University of Missouri comes to Texas to play Texas A&M and later in the year. But the good competition that comes from that will make both of those teams better.
Governor Rick Perry, in your ad, you say that more than $40 million are leaving Missouri for Texas every year. What are some of those businesses that are leaving every year?
I don't have a list of those. I'll be more than happy. We'll get our economic development folks to get you a list of them that have relocated out of Missouri to Texas. But the issue is that businesses move around all the time. There are over 1,000 people a day move into the state of Texas every day. And I jokingly tell people they're probably not moving there in August because of the cool weather. They're coming there because they're in search of freedom from overtaxation, overregulation. And I think that's the real story. 30% of all the jobs created in the United States in the last decade were created in Texas. That didn't happen by accident. And so having this conversation, again, I go back to, this is really healthy. It may not be necessarily comfortable, but when you had to run those wind sprints on the baseball field, it probably wasn't comfortable, but it made you a better athlete, made you a better competitor and performer. And that is really at the soul of what this is about. Let's not be afraid to have a conversation about, this is a great state. I lived here the summer of 1969 in Festus, Missouri, just south of where I am right now. And this is a incredibly wonderful state with hardworking people in it. I just think they can be even more successful and create more wealth and in turn make America a stronger country by having tax policy and regulations that free people from overtaxation, overregulation.
Governor, if Republicans come home and override the veto, taxes, personal taxes will go to 5.5%, and corporate taxes will go to 3.25%. Texas doesn't have an income tax, so you will still be able to steal businesses from Missouri even if this tax goes through.
The point is, how do you make this state more competitive? And you don't make this state more competitive by leaving a onerous tax burden in place. I think it's a great way for us to be talking to employers about what they're really looking for in an economic climate. And I will suggest to you that higher taxes probably are not on the top of that list of things that they're looking for. So it's the overall climate that you find in a state. One of the ways that Missouri families can have better environment to take care care of their family members is if you have a less onerous tax climate, and that's what this is about. So, in one fell swoop, are you going to make your state more competitive than Texas tax structure? No, but you're moving in that direction. We didn't get to where we are today with one legislative session, or it's taken us a decade to put these policies into place, and that's how you build your reputation. That's how you build up your team, so to speak. The university's athletic program generally go from mediocre to winning a national championship overnight. Missouri can head in that direction by overriding the veto of the governor, by putting policies into place that send the message that Missouri is going to be even more competitive as they go forward in the future from the standpoint of their business climate.
Governor
That's
Rick,
what this is about. Governor
Rick Perry, just a couple more minutes because we're short on time. While you're here, are you going to be meeting or have you met with any Missouri businesses in an effort to lure them to Texas?
Sure. We are, and actually there's some businessmen and women who have come from Texas to just kind of share their personal stories and about what doing business in Texas is like. So, we're having some opportunities to meet with individuals who may not be considering at the moment, but are curious about what's going on there and what the opportunities are. I think that's good.
And who paid for this trip?
Yes, sir. We have a group called Texas One, and it's businesses across the state of Texas, from small businesses to some of the larger businesses. Texas One, I think, has been in place now for close to a decade, so that's how we...
Is that a private entity or a public entity? Are there tax dollars involved with that?
Yeah, there are no tax dollars involved with it. It's all private sector funded.
Well, Texas Governor Rick Perry, next time you're in town trying to steal our businesses, we welcome you to come into the studio and have a longer conversation.
We'll be more than happy to do it. So long.
You got it. Governor of Texas, Rick Perry. 8:01. Sorry, we will now enter ABC News already in progress. KTRS St.